Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about light signs or plexiglass light art. Call it whatever you like, but they look really cool. They're always a flashy thing to have in your business or in your art collection. The way these are made is these pieces of cast acrylic plastic are 6 inches by 8 inches, and it's the laser cutters that are scoring these designs into place. So the way that we're going to try designing these images is kind of like this. Because we only really have control over what is seen as bright, we need to work from black and white images. That way we have the best sense of where the brightest areas are, and then we can outline those with vector paths. So using the Interpolate Points Curve tool and working on a layer that has kind of a brighter color, which remember in layers you can always change the color of your vectors by clicking on the little colorful box. So I can see really bright shapes here. So with Interpolate Points, I'll pick a starting place and follow this path as faithfully as I can. And I have not posterized this in Photoshop, so it's sort of up to me to decide where the real boundary is between the brightest area and the darkest area. And I can always change where these control points are and change the character of the line after I've drawn the shape. So there's no real way to make a mistake here. All right, there's a closed path. If I click on any one part of this, oh no, I switched over here. So I've got to join these. A closed curve is a lot easier to deal with later parts of this activity. Okay, that's probably good. If I needed to make a little change, what I would do is select the curve and watch for these offset control points to materialize. Here I can click and drag and make some changes to the shape this way. So that's probably good. And after covering, I don't know, maybe a dozen of these shapes, I would have something that looks like this. And now I'm ready to move on to the next phase. Remember, these aren't just lines that we're looking at here. I mean, this one might be just a composition of lines. I think it's more than that, but we've got vector paths, and then we've filled in the shape inside of that. So the way that we can do that is there are two ways, and they both produce slightly different results, and I'll talk about the differences after I explain. So my material boundary, because remember these are 6 by 8 inches, I want to draw a line against the very top of it, and then one more line, and this is going to be, let me back out of that for a second. This second line is going to be really short, and if you look at the score resolution on this design, you see it's just a bunch of parallel lines that are set equidistantly from one another. And that distance between all of those lines, that's what I'm about to draw here. So a millimeter of space between is probably fine, but you could double that or cut that in half. So I'm going to do 0.03 inches, which is about a millimeter. And now with the upper line, the horizontal line, I'm going to use the array linear command. And I've got a lot of distance to cover here, so I'm going to go with 250 of these lines. And the starting point will be at the top of my 0.03 inch line, and the ending point will be at the bottom. And that ensures that each of these parallel lines are spaced a millimeter apart. What I would do now is I'm going to use the trim command. Actually, before I do that, I think I should hide my reference image so it's a little easier to see just the lines here. So trim in the command bar. I'm going to select, I would recommend selecting all of the shapes in your composition. Um, so select every shape that you've got to work with. I'm only going to be demonstrating this in one little area, so I'll maybe grab a couple more here and then get to work. All right, so once you've selected your trimming objects, you'll press enter to confirm them. And now if you start clicking to trim away the lines outside of your bright shapes, and remember, clicking and dragging from right to left to do partial selections is how you can really trim away a lot of these lines at once. Otherwise, it would take a really long time. And I know everybody is busy. It's college. I respect that. So use the broadest possible method of getting rid of these lines. And it doesn't have to be perfect either. Just generally, we want to isolate the shapes that we've drawn because those are the ones that are important for our image. And there may be some spaces where, yeah, you do have to zoom in a little bit and trim things one at a time. If a portrait is what you're wanting to do, I think the most important place to, be more precise in your trimming is with the facial features of your friend, your family, maybe a pet. So once all of that trimming is done, you'll wind up with a bunch of filled in shapes like this. And if you select everything and highlight it a nice bright yellow, this is almost like a preview of how it would turn out after you've cut things on the laser cutter. I think this is a pretty good likeness of the subject I've chosen here, so I'm happy with that. I would now go ahead and, um, as usual, I'm going to export selected, and I'm going to export it as, because we have to run these in Adobe Illustrator before printing, I would do an Adobe Illustrator. Otherwise, the AutoCAD Drawing Exchange .dxf will work too. All right, now these are, representational images. I know not everybody is interested in that, and some of us are more interested in design graphics. So if that is the case, try using some words, numbers, letters, non-objective designs, and try being experimental with it if you like. I've got this, impossible triangle shape that I'm really interested in. I think I saw it on an album cover once, and I just never forgot. It's so cool. So, just like we did with the other shapes, I've trimmed away all of those linearly arrayed lines to fill in my text here. But with this, I think I want to do something a little more clever. So, I am going to use another single line against the top here, and then a 0.03 inch line or a 1 millimeter line here. Do an array linear and bring this all the way down like that. Um, and I think I'm going to do one more thing here as well. On a new layer, I'll switch over to this bright blue layer here, and for the moment I'll turn off the other one. I'm going to repeat the process, do an array linear up here. Or I suppose I don't have to do it all the way up there. I could probably come down here maybe, holding shift now that I don't have another curve to support that line. 0.03 here, array linear. Now I probably want about half this many, so maybe 115 lines. Let's see, yeah. And okay, I'm gonna copy all of these, copy and paste, and then rotate one of them 90 degrees. So I've got now a crisscross infill pattern. And it's on another layer too. So if I switch back to the other layer and turn this one off, what I can do is choose one of these shapes. So trim in the command bar, and I'm going to just use this one shape for this trim. Or, no, I'm going to use these two, I think. Yeah. So I'll, let's see, start getting rid of all of these. Okay. And these in the middle too. And so I want this, 1 millimeter spacing for this side. So if I imagine that this is a three-dimensional impossible triangle, this is all one side, and this shape here is another side. Maybe it's like facing down or something. If it was facing down instead of up, maybe it's not going to appear as bright. So I can come in here and just get rid of every other line. So all the lines in this shape would be 2 millimeters apart instead of 1. And that should produce an infill brightness that is a little duller than the other one. So I've got those taken care of now, and I can get rid of the remaining arrayed lines that I don't need anymore. And now, okay, I'm gonna switch back to this other layer and turn the green layer off. So anything I do now shouldn't affect the line work that we've already done. So with this crisscross one now, I'm gonna do another trim command and use this shape. And oh, you know what? I should probably, so I don't accidentally delete the other ones. Yeah, let me try trim. And no, I think this should work fine. Oops. Forgot to press enter to confirm. So now if I come in here, I can get rid of all of the lines outside this shape. And I want to be careful not to accidentally trim the wrong thing, because then I'll have to restart the trimming process, but it's going by pretty quick. Okay. And remember, it's your selection box going right to left is what makes this so fast. Trying to do it from left to right, it's not gonna, it only will allow full selections, not partial ones. if you're going left to right, but you can make partial selections going right to left, which is cool. No one else does that, I think. All right, so enter, and I'm gonna complete that trimming operation and now just delete all these regions that I no longer need. And if I turn that green layer back on and select the entire design, I have another copy of this over here. With everything highlighted in yellow, again, it's not perfectly accurate, but it does give you a good idea of how your design is going to look after you've cut it. So I did have some great questions about this in class last week. What if what you want to do requires more subtle regions of bright value and not just one flat bright value? Well, this is something you could try is, try mixing up your pitches as far as how you array these parallel lines, and you should be able to get something pretty interesting. Okay, one more thing, and I'm trying to keep this as short as I can. Let's say that all of this stuff is just not going to work for the idea that you have, and you have a really complex image, and you can't afford to sacrifice any of the detail. Well, in Photoshop, if you just, so your black and white image, if you go to adjustments and use the invert adjustment to create a negative, an image negative, the laser. So remember the presets for the Universal Laser Systems laser engravers is the blue vector color, blue 255 in the RGB color scheme. Blue is going to look for superficial cuts, just score lines. Red are going to be vector cuts too, but they're high power ones that are meant to cut through materials like thin plywood. Black, white, and the gray scale is going to be a rastering operation. So anywhere here where we've got black, the laser is going to be burning at a higher power. Gray, it'll be sort of half power, and white, it's just going to leave those areas untouched. And because anything that the laser touches, in this case, is going to show up as bright because we're bouncing light off of those marks, we actually need the image negative to send to the laser. So this right here, we would have to pull this up in Illustrator, of course, and then print our project. But it's going to capture a lot more detail in this case. It's going to also save you quite a lot of time. The downside, the trade-off is the rastering operation. It generally moves so fast that the depth of those individual cuts, it's going to be pretty shallow, and the LED light is not going to have as much of that surface area to bounce off of. So the brightness, it might not be quite as intense as if we do these, very, meticulously made vector lines, but you'll capture more detail. And we're compensating for it with, I've redesigned our strip LED housing to have light on 3 sides. So that should compensate for any potential dullness from a rastered image instead of a vector image like this. Okay, one last thing. Remember, the plexiglass panels, the slabs that we're working on, they are 6 inches by 8 inches, but a little bit of that edge is going to be covered up by part of the light housing. It's like a ½ inch. So really important design elements, if they're too far to the edge, they might be covered up. So if we centralize our image just a little bit, we bring it in a little bit more to the center, nothing should be obscured by the physical light housing, okay? I'm looking forward very much to seeing all of your ideas. And if you have any questions, as always, please send me an email. I'll be in our classroom for normal office hours. All right. Everybody, enjoy your weekend and have fun with these projects. They always turn out really cool. All right. Bye bye.